Well, hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to the Rattlecast. We're the biggest freewheeling live streaming poetry podcast on the planet, in your ears and on your laptops. Today's guest for episode number 307 is Richard Siken. He'll join us in just a few minutes. But before we begin, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all this. We love poetry. I know you do, too, so please do click on the like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring the bell for notifications. Whatever you can do to help spread poetry around the internet would be much appreciated. And do it right now. Don't forget, because you probably will. Now, we're going to start out like we always do with our Poets Respond poem. And Jennifer Manthey is here, the poet from Sunday night. As we move to Monday, and we're still featuring that wonderful Sunday poem. And Jennifer is here, having gone through one of the biggest tragedies this weekend, experiencing it nearby. Hi, Jennifer. How you doing? Yeah, and so the shooting that happened in Minnesota is something that most of the poems were written about. I think there's one of those weeks where maybe more than half even of the poems submitted for Poets Respond so was written about this. And but your poem was one of those ones that I just reading it toward the end, I felt a visceral reaction to, And it's always just wonderful reading submissions when that happens, when you're reading a poem and you're so struck with what's going on that you respond physiologically. And so thanks for sharing this and writing it. What can you tell us about why you wrote it and how the poem came to be?
Yeah, so obviously, we had a horrible tragedy in our neighborhood this Wednesday. Um, I live just about 10 blocks from the Annunciation Catholic School. My kids don't go there, but all three of my kids know students at the school or little brothers and sisters, since it's a K through 8 school. And I think obviously, like, this is a recurring disturbing event. Um, but to have that sort of like intimacy with it was um, it was really jarring to see neighbors and friends on the national news. Um, some of the photographs that we've all seen are people that I know and that live in my neighborhood. So I think I was, just consumed by this news event, and I think also there was something happening with the fact that it was like a faith-based school. Um, it brings up a lot of this idea of like our thoughts and our prayers and what are the limits of our faith? Like, how do we reconcile when um, faith seems to fail us? Um, so I think just like wrestling with those ideas and seeing, you know, my friends go through this and my friends' children and my children's friends was really difficult. And I went to my son's hockey game Thursday night, where they do have a couple players on their team that were in the school. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where this came from.
Yeah. Did you have any trouble like figuring out how to enter the poem, like where to wrap your head around getting going? Because it's one of those that really flows with the energy and the drama and the rhythm of what you start with. Was it difficult to find your way into this poem?
I didn't like, no part of me thought I was going to write a poem about this. I didn't think I would like to write a poem about this, though I do really enjoy the Poets Respond series. Um, I think after the hockey game, um, I the next morning went to like my Friday morning yoga class that I always do, um, and I just kind of felt like I don't know. Sometimes I think that a poem just like wants to happen. So finding my way in I think I found it in that sort of scene and like hugging my friends at the hockey game and
Hmm.
seeing my son come out of the locker room. And it just felt like something that needed to be written down.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so
Yeah,
glad you did. Do you want to go ahead and read the poem now?
sure. The title is Locker Room Annunciation. Greetings, you who are highly favored. Luke 1:28. They weren't quiet like their parents in the stands were. They're middle school boys, so they were still laughing a little bit and teasing and playing some music to get pumped up for the game. But they were also thinking about their friend who wasn't there yet, the one who goes to the school where it happened. Was he coming tonight? They hadn't heard from him because his phone was in his locker, probably. They'd spent the previous day checking Snapchat and text threads over and over and over and over and didn't hear from him. But someone heard from his cousin, who was in their fantasy football league, who said that he was okay. And then he came in. He appeared before them like he always had, and they didn't cry or hug like the moms in the stands did, but they gave him all their attention as he told them about hearing shots and seeing something strange in the window, and how there was blood on his new shoes, but just a little, and how he found his sister later in the seventh grade math room, which wasn't even her classroom. She's 7, but that's where she ended up. And they said things like, oh man, and that's messed up. And they pulled their skate laces tight and went onto the ice and fought for the puck and yelled to each other and bumped fists. But oh shoot, sorry,
It's okay.
I need to. Sorry. And bumped fists, and the parents prayed for a win for them. They needed it tonight of all the nights. Both teams played well. It was close, but they didn't win, and no one could say why.
Yeah, just such a beautiful, capturing of that, the emotion. And, there's so much that goes into those kind of feelings as those kind of events get closer and closer to us. Thanks so much for sharing that, Jennifer. It's been great
Yeah,
talking to you and seeing you, and people really appreciate this poem too.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Yeah, that was Jennifer Manthey with Locker Room Annunciation. Today's poem, or yesterday's poem, I should say, on Poets Respond. If you are not subscribed to the Daily Poem at rattle.com, all you got to do is go to rattle.com. Down at the bottom there's an email sign-up sheet. You'll get poems like this in your inbox, the news poems every Sunday, poems for our issues the rest of the week. So make sure you sign up for that. And if you have your own poem about anything related to current events, anything inspired by what's going on in the news, we're trying to keep poetry relevant and present in the conversation. Make sure you send them by midnight on Friday night. It's for possible publication on Sunday. And just go to rattle.com. Up in the contents, you'll find Poets Respond and submit your poems there. All right, now we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Richard Siken. So sit tight, and we'll be back with a whole lot more poetry. And we're back. Thanks for your patience. Like I said, today's guest is Richard Siken. Richard's a painter and poet. His book, Crush, won the 2004 Yale Series of Younger Poets Prize, selected by Louise Glück, a Lambda Literary Award, a Thom Gunn Award, and was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. His other books are War of the Foxes, which came out from Copper Canyon Press, and his new book, I Do Know Some Things, which just came out. Siken is a recipient of fellowships from the Lannan Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts. He lives in Tucson, Arizona, and here he is, Richard Siken. Hey, Richard, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thanks so much for joining us. It's really a pleasure to have you on. I think, Crush was one of those books that it's so... I mentioned this to other people from time to time, but it feels like Crush was the last book that, had buzz in poetry 21 years ago, but, it was one of those books that everybody was talking about at the time for, a few years afterward. And it's great to see, the new book coming out again. And it's a really powerful book of prose poems, interestingly enough. I do know some things. So glad you wrote that. And thanks for coming on. Do you want to start out right away with the opening poem from the book to get our feet wet with it?
Sure. This poem's called Real Estate. My mother married a man who divorced her from money. Phyllis, he would say, if you don't stop buying jewelry, I will have to divorce you to keep us out of the poorhouse. When he said this, she would stub out a cigarette, mutter, motherfucker, under her breath. Eventually, he was forced to divorce her. Then he died. Then she did. That man was not my father. My father was buried down the road in a box his other son selected, the ashes of his third wife in a brass urn that he will hold in the crook of his arm forever. At the reception, after the funeral, I got mean on 4 cups of lime sherbet punch. When the man who was not my father divorced my mother, I stopped being related to him. These things are complicated, says the Talmud. When he died, I couldn't prove it. I couldn't get a death certificate. These things are complicated, says the health department. Their names remain on the deed to the house. It isn't haunted. It's owned by ghosts. When I die, I will come in fast and low. I will stick the landing. There will be no confusion. The dead will make room for me.
And that was Richard Siken reading Real Estate from his new book, I Do Know Some Things. Richard, a lot's happened since your last book, and the main thing is the topic of the book that comes up frequently, the stroke that you suffered in 2019, it's just such a deep experience that really affected you, of course. Can you explain to people what happened and how this book started to come into place?
Sure. I had a catastrophic stroke. I was paralyzed on my right side. I lost my short-term memory. I lost my capacity for language. I lost my guile and my poker face and my ability to lie. And I was like a child throwing tantrums and having rages and bursting into tears. And it took a month before I could even start remembering what was happening to me. It was really just a wash of memories and attempts at saying and confusion and scraps of things. And I couldn't knit it together. After a while in rehab, I started a little notebook. I had to do exercises to practice my handwriting to see if I could get my right hand to work again. And my handwriting was really crooked and halting and hard to read. And I started picking nouns to see if I could understand them. And I made a little glossary of things that I could look to see what we were talking about. It really was stripped of language down to the fundamentals. And I needed to figure out what light switch was and what hamburger was. And I needed to write down my friends' names and write down little notes about how I knew them um, and what I could ask of them and if I could depend on them. So the book started as scraps of language and scraps of memory and developed from there.
And it's fascinating too, that it's prose poems. And you were known. The line breaks were so important in Crush. There's a quote, actually, it must be no coincidence it's kind of going viral around, but I keep seeing it, where you wrote, you said, when you break a line, you make a friction between the line and sentence. The line goes one way, the sentence goes another. And you could see the play in that in Crush, your first book, particularly so clearly. And the line was such an important element for you. So now having prose poems, what was the drive toward writing in this form instead of what you used to be doing?
The line is crucial. It's fundamental. It's the friction that no other art form has. No other art form has a line break. And it makes a hitch in the breath. It adds a musicality. It's where meanings start to multiply. And I knew I wanted to do something different with each book. I was really happy with the line breaks in Crush and thought of them as a way of scoring for music. I had a sense of the left margin being the ground and the right margin being the sky, and needing a really muscular line to reach towards the sky. And I didn't like the idea that the eye had to come back to the left, return to the left, always to the left again. And so I had the indentations so that there would be a little more float to it, a little more play. And the eye wouldn't have to come all the way back to left, but you'd have gained some time. You'd have some lift left. I didn't want to repeat that for my second book. I did Left Justified to see what would happen if I took the trick of the line break away. And then for this book, I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk the disjunction or the hitch or the break. It was too hard just to make sentences, just to make the words link up. Mm-hmm. And having line breaks just confused me and made it really hard to get through. And so I had to abandon the idea of being able to use them.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that's really interesting. And the poems, the first two we're going to read, are sort of scraps of memory pulled together into this form. Do you want to read the second one, Family Therapy?
Sure. Family Therapy. The morning after my father killed his first wife, he woke up next to her dead body, rose from their bed, and began his morning routine. At lunch, from his office, he called the landlord and asked him to check on her. He was worried, he said. The night before, he had taken her pill bottles and lined them up on the bathroom counter. He said unkind things, using words like burden and ruin. He stood in the doorway and wouldn't let her pass until the bottles were empty. They went to bed. He said good night. She said goodbye. They turned their backs to each other under the thick blankets. This is what he said, my father, in family therapy, a few months before he died. I had already figured it out, mostly. The other son had always been more tender, gullible, and it was his mother, not mine, so you can see how it would be easier for me to get my head around it. They watched each other, trying to figure who was getting their head around it. The therapist watched my father. My father watched the other son. The other son turned away and looked out the window, where the wind was pushing some leaves around. I confess, I feel bad for the landlord. He must have known. The body had been dead all night. I imagine him with his heavy ring of keys, unlocking all the doors to all the rooms he's been responsible for, year after year, until he's no longer surprised by the residue. Empty bottles in a mirrored cabinet, a wedding ring at the edge of a sink.
And that was Family Therapy by Richard Siken from his book, I Do Know Some Things, which just came out from Copper Canyon Press. And one of the things you already mentioned is that you lost the ability to lie, which is so, interesting for a poet, and from the perspective of what poetry is and how we're so drawn to a perception of truth, or what we feel like is a truth, or maybe a deeper truth. What is it? How did that change the way you encounter poetry to not be able to lie anymore?
Well, it was good in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because the project of this book was to reconstruct myself. And it made no sense to try and reconstruct myself out of contaminated parts. If I lied about things, I wouldn't be sure exactly what I was rebuilding.
Yeah, I mean, that's just is so interesting. I keep thinking about reading the book last night. We had a poet, Malcolm Alexander. It was actually, by coincidence, I pulled up a poem of his, I think last Monday is the poem of the day, or Sunday, throwing it back in an old issue. And he was a poet that was writing in prison. And he was just a brilliant poet, and he would send these letters with poems, and they were great poems. He was a voracious reader. So we have, I think, 3 poems by Malcolm in the issue. And then he got out of prison and ended up really sadly having a traumatic brain injury. And he said that he lost the part of him that was poetry and couldn't write anymore. And there was a letter that he wrote to me, sharing that experience and saying, like, I wish I could, but I can't do it. I can't engage with poetry anymore. And that must be that thought of having to rebuild yourself. Is such a frightening thing. So speaking, trying to rebuild yourself and finding the truth. What was that journey like?
Well, similarly, I lost my sense of music. That was another reason I couldn't break the line. I really was just struggling with the content of the words. I noticed even I didn't use contractions anymore, because contractions were 2 words at the same time, and that was confusing. I really felt the stutter in my language, and it was a success to be able to say it is instead of being casual and saying it's. I couldn't be that casual. I would fumble. What was the experience of rebuilding myself? I don't know. Can you be more particular about that?
Well, like what pieces did you know? I mean, it's such a strange thing to go through. How did you start going about it? Like what were there's certain memories that came back and you were writing those down? That's kind of what I imagined as I was reading the book. is that there were certain things that came back to you and you were sort of chronicling those and sort of making sense of them, if that makes sense?
I think it probably mirrored the experience of a child, of coming into language and coming into memory. I know I had to relearn the nouns first and gather them together and then try to make them interact with the verbs. And then I got better at describing. So those were the adjectives and adverbs. It really was relearning the basics from the ground up. I didn't have abstract thought until much later. I think the book does a pretty good job of showing the development from nounless to being able to make a paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
And I was measuring my recovery on the ability to make a paragraph. And so having this book finally, though it's years later, having this book of paragraphs for me is proof that I recovered. At least I met my goal of recovery. I'll never fully recover.
Yeah. Well, do you want to read another poem? Sidewalk is next.
Sidewalk. I crawled to the front door and swung it open so the ambulance could find me. It seemed like a strange thing to do since I hadn't called for an ambulance. So I crawled to the end of the sidewalk and sat there, which still didn't make sense. All the condos looked the same, so it was going to be difficult to find me if the door wasn't open. There was a noise in my head, and I couldn't afford an ambulance. So I called a friend to come and get me, and he wasn't happy. It felt weird. I went back and locked the door and stood in front of the house to wait for my friend, but I wasn't standing in front of the house. I was lying on the sidewalk with my face in my shoulder bag because I couldn't stand up, and I was afraid it would scare my friend, so I rolled on my side and propped myself up with my weak arm while my legs sprawled out behind me. I held my bag tight to my chest and tried to look casual with my crooked smile and unfocused eyes. It was hard to keep my head up, but I kept smiling at the pavement and the blurry middle distance until I could see the wheels of a car and my friend's shoes. I felt like I was running to him, but I wasn't moving. The trees were tall and fast outside the car window. I kept apologizing. It was clear that something had happened that wasn't going to unhappen. In the emergency room, the woman at the desk kept asking me questions. All my answers were stroke, dizzy, numb. I kept saying the words in different ways so she would understand. She didn't. She didn't believe me. They put me in the waiting room, which I knew was wrong, and I realized that I had messed up because I didn't call for an ambulance. I kept falling asleep in the waiting room. I looked much worse, slack and crooked, the two sides of my face moving at different speeds. I went back to the desk and said, "Help." They put me in a room. No one believes that I know what I know because sometimes I miss a part or tell it sideways. Some people get stuck on the first thing you say and they don't let you finish your syllogism. They asked the wrong questions. I gave the wrong answers. They thought I was faking it. I said numb. I meant getting numb, more numb, half of me mostly numb. They said, "Lift your leg." I did, a few inches. It was heavy. They were mad. "You aren't paralyzed." They kept missing the point. None of this was normal. I do know some things. I was making strange and ambiguous gestures. I was trying to tell them about the door and the ambulance and the sidewalk. The doctor decided I was having a panic attack and discharged me. Someone wheeled me to the curb. Someone else helped me into a car.
Yeah. And that was Sidewalk by Richard Siken. And really, the way you were treated at the hospital, Richard, it's terrible. Did you have, how much awareness do you have of what was going on? The memory, you chronicle it like you were there, and like, you have that whole memory there. And we really experienced that experience with you as you're going through it all. Were you aware of sort of recording this experience to write about it later? Is that any thought crossed your mind, or what were you thinking at that time as far as like the higher level, like looking down at yourself and what was happening?
I was so angry and so scared that this is something that I did remember very clearly. In retelling this story, there are lots of parts where there are gaps. There was a whole day of this with them, going to the hospital at noon and trying to figure out what to do when I was home at midnight. So there are gaps in those 12 hours, but I was able to capture some of the important things. The fact that they didn't believe me was so infuriating. And I had never been more disabled and have less capacity. And for them to be so cavalier and frustrated with me was really disappointing and terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a sort of a similar experience. Katie's daughter was bitten by a snake, and it swelled up. And at the urgent care, they thought it was. They didn't understand what it was, and they were giving her for X-rays for a broken finger, and the wrong medication. And we went there and looked at it and said, "Oh, that looks like a snake bite," and that hadn't even crossed their mind. And it's terrifying that the places you go for help, I guess, can be this ineffective and unhelpful. Have you thought about, is there any way you've come to terms with that of how poorly you were helped in the moment?
I got lucky. The hospitals are just full of people struggling to be heard, and doctors not having the resources, and insurance making it complicated on both ends. My story is not unique, but I just decided to share the part of it that I went through. Mm-hmm. But I don't think any of it is shocking to anyone. Most people, when they read this poem, identify with it rather than find it inconceivable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's hear the next poem. Metonymy is up next.
This is the continuation of the last poem. In the book, there are several poems between them that show the scattershot quality of my memory. I couldn't, though that poem I think is pretty solid, I couldn't connect it to the rest of the night. This is the rest of the night. Metonymy. Someone wheeled me to the curb. Someone else helped me into a car. We got to the condo and managed to get me down the stairs into the living room where I fell asleep on a mattress we put on the floor. I slept, I peed myself, I fell off the mattress, I fell out of chairs, talking wildly. I scared them, whoever they were, the people I was supposed to know. I knew who James was. He was on the phone. He was in California. You can't stay there. You have to go to the hospital. You can go to a different hospital. I changed my clothes. It was like dressing a mannequin. Getting into the car, I fell on the emergency brake and broke my glasses. In the emergency room at the second hospital, the woman at the desk said, "Oh no, you've had a stroke." And they wheeled me in. The doctor was handsome, and it embarrassed me. For a while, I was talking to a brightness in the corner of the room. When they tried to give me a heparin shot, I threw a bedpan. I kept asking for someone over and over, the friend who took me to the first hospital. I said black tree when I meant night. I said the branches blow and we sleep in dirt. I said telephone, safe harbor. Perhaps you are. Perhaps you are diamonds.
And another powerful poem that was Metonymy from I Do Know Some Things. So, reading the experience of reading this book is just so harrowing, and it feels, all the intensity of a novel. And I think the main thing is the honesty that comes through. Like you're such a compelling witness, I guess, to your experience in these poems. And even to the point where there are gaps and the things that don't connect, it feels like you're honest and authentic about that. And I think it speaks to something too. I think the prose poem is a good example. Thinking about it in terms of the Haibun form, which we publish a lot of Haibun. It's often really wonderful when the Haibun has this, because there's the prose section, and then there's the leap into sort of the deeper symbolic understanding of something with the haiku. And so there's this sense of narrative storytelling in a journalistic, authentic, honest way. To start with, and then there's that leap into poetry too that happens, and I think what really works about this book so well is that straightforward honesty that you write with, and I think that the prose goes a long way toward that. Being authentic and speaking that directly about everything that happened to you. How did that change the way you approached making poems compelling? Did that change the way that you thought about it, writing in the first place? Because there's, if you want to write poems where you're the only one who could possibly write that poem, and it's something that you have to make the reader care about and pay attention to and want to read and not waste their time. And there's all these things that you do, leaping and twisting and moving with that playfulness. But it's very different to engage things authentically, isn't it? And so how did that change the way you went about moving through a poem?
When I realized I couldn't break the line, it became apparent that I would be writing in paragraphs. That meant I was going to have 60, 70, 80 paragraphs, and they were going to look the same. And they were going to be prose poem paragraphs, which meant they would be talky and chatty and not as condensed as lyric poetry often is. And so I was very wary about how to move through the poems, and I made sure to vary the strategies. I had a cheat sheet where I wrote down all the different strategies I could possibly use, and I found ones that matched up with the content of the poem. I used lyric strategies. I used the lyric, the narrative, the meditative, the rhetorical. I used humor. I used dark humor. I changed the emotional distance from very close to very far away and flat. I changed the camera angles so that I was seeing it from the floor or seeing it from above or panning across a room. I made sure that the movements were unique and not repeated, and that the modes and motions were surprising and twisting. So there's a lot of torque in these. There's a lot of switching up of gestures, just to try and keep it energetic.
Yeah, well, you can feel that experience as you read through the poems. Let's see. Well, do you want to read the next one?
This is a really good example of what the experience was at the very beginning. How did I start making sense in the hospital of what was going on? I didn't. I was trying to find a landmark. I was trying to find a place, a thing. I needed a 0 to start my number chart. I couldn't get to 1, 2, or 3 until I found home base, baseline. And memories would come, but they wouldn't complete. And I couldn't tell what house I was in. And I was just flipping through possibilities and memories and what were probably fantasies and not memories. And I was just trying to find something that I could latch onto. And this mirrors the experience of that. Landmark. All night, all the cities in the thickening darkness. All night, all the roads. All night, all the houses with their punched-in eyes in the sickening, sickening darkness. I slept on the roof. I slept in the yard. I slept in the closet under the cuffs of a dozen shirts when I thought there was something in the room with me. There was nothing in the room with me. I slept. Oh, pioneers, I kicked in doors. The sound of hooves. We must not tarry. Night has descended, and all its stars, they crackle and burn while I am left here, silent in the dimmed arena. I swear to God, there must have been a day on the beach or a secret dip in the lake after dinner. I must have walked all night against the wind once, trying to get somewhere. There must have been. I slept on the plaid couch. I slept in the house with the red kitchen. I fell out of bed and slept on the floor in a square of astonishing moonlight. I crawled there, hand over hand, from the darkness of a terrible dream. Believe me, something is heaving, incomprehensible. The house is filling up with strangers, and the picture frames fall off the walls. There isn't a word for it. Metal, powder, rust, a pear. Even here, a night flight, a tense change, struck like a bell. What's that in your drink? Have you been here long? Oh, why won't you love me? Love me. There isn't a word for it. Moonlight, slippery. There isn't a word for it. Moonlight. Through every window at once. I concentrated on the moon. I dug a hole in the sky and called it the moon. A hole in the sky, and we call it the moon.
And that was Richard Siken reading Landmark from his new book, I Do Know Some Things. Already some good questions from the audience. Richard, Dick Westheimer wants to know, the music in these comes through so clearly. I'm wondering if you hear it differently now, and if you respond to it as you write, or if it emerges as you write. And I feel the same way too. There's a real, there is the music of speech in these poems. Like you mentioned the music leaving you, but the music is still clearly here. And so do you hear it differently? Is the question from Dick.
Um, I didn't hear the music at first. I
Hmm.
can hear the music in this a lot more. And the music I got, I was just running on fumes. It was just gut stuff. It was just the learning that I had done before had shaped me into a shape that could sound like this.
Hmm.
But the intentional music, I couldn't make an intentional music. I only got the accidental music.
Hmm.
It has been 6 years now, and I am able to break lines in my new notebooks, and I am able to get some music in my new notebooks. But for the bulk of this book and the writing of this book, that just wasn't an option.
Hmm. Yeah. Did you do you think any way differently about the music now that you've had sort of the firsthand experience of relearning it? Like when we're kids, we are acquiring language. We're hearing those nursery rhymes and songs and finding the way that our bodies move with sound and what the music of speech is. But we're not aware of what's going on. So as you're reaccumulating and reacquiring this, you have a different experience that most people just never have because we don't have memories. We're not aware enough while it's going on of what the acquisition of this whole language thing is. So did you think about it in any different ways now that you've had this different experience with poetry itself?
I got an MFA, and in an MFA program, you're encouraged to find your voice. And they don't tell you what that means, but they encourage you to do it. One of the ways I found my voice was to record myself, to find my rhythms,
Hmm.
to find where I would breathe naturally, to see how I spoke, when the declaratives came, what were the rhythms of the commas and the rhythms of the gestures. And I leaned into it. I leaned into it and I heightened it and I shaped it. I noticed that there's a language we use when we've been in a car accident or are struck by horrifying news. It gets clipped and associative and focuses on tiny little things like, where is my wallet? Have you seen my wallet? And the car is ruined and you can't move your arm, but you can't deal with that. And you just fixate on, where is my wallet? I can't lose my wallet. Um, I paid attention to all sorts of disorders to see if there was a language disorder um, attached to it. And there usually is. Um, you betray yourself with language. And knowing that, you can use those betrayals as revelations.
Hmm.
You can use those places as hinges or places where you really stick your landing. Um, I'm getting I'm getting a sense of my new music, but it's not my old music. And part of coming back into my body was allowing myself to come back into my body because I really didn't want to. It was really uncomfortable being in my body. And I would breathe shallowly and I would speak softly because I didn't want the words to resonate inside me. It was it was sickening. It was insulting. The physicality of the body is insulting. Um, there are just some words I won't use anymore or hadn't used.
Hmm.
The back of the throat words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm dealing with a new language and a new body and um, a new outlook too, because I have a new but limited skill set. And a lot of things opened up that I couldn't do before. I can do pretty well
Hmm.
because my habits got scrambled and my fears and my dislikes got scrambled. And so stuff that I was shy about doing before, I'm not so shy about doing.
Hmm.
And things that you could count on me to do, I no longer want to do.
Hmm. Well, that's really interesting. What's it like to read your old poems? From the first two books. Does it feel like in a visceral way that it's somebody else, given that there's a different voice speaking? I think a lot of times we have that experience in a small way when we look back at old poems. Like there's this familiarity and then this like real distance because we sort of die and are reborn every day in a strange way, but it's so close we forget and don't notice. And so looking back at those old poems, does it feel, I imagine it would, starkly like a different person? I mean, what is your experience of like Crush?
For the first few years, I didn't recognize it. I didn't understand it. Um, and I couldn't get in the head of anyone who would write that or like that and wasn't even sure I liked that person. It was really just absolutely foreign to me. Um, I didn't remember writing it.
Hmm.
I didn't remember the things that I was writing about. Now I do. I have recovered that, and so I can relate to both Crush and War of the Foxes in the ways that I did before the stroke. But I'd say there was a good 4 or 5 years where they were just not for me.
Hmm.
I was kept outside of them.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I understand why that would feel that way. Let's read another poem. Let's read Dinosaur next.
So the book is heavily weighted to tragedy on the front end because that's when the catastrophe happens. And then I recover through 7 sections. I recover more and more lucidity and capacity, um, and get even a sense of humor towards the end. This is a poem that happens pretty much in the middle of the book, where I've gone to the hospital, I've gone to rehab, I've gone to various places to try and recover. And now I've landed uh, in a house with housemates. And I understand some things, but not other things. And I'm just trying to navigate a house full of strangers. Dinosaur. My housemate's girlfriend has a kid who stays with us half the week. He's kind of slow for a 10-year-old, but everyone keeps insisting that he's 6. His hair is too long, but I don't really know what he looks like because I won't look him in the face. He'll barrel into the kitchen saying something about dinosaurs and stop abruptly and say, "You're not Andy." I never turn around because sandwiches are important, and he shouldn't be encouraged to barrel into a room without looking, thinking that it's safe because rarely is anything safe, and most people aren't Andy, and they will just take what you say about dinosaurs and twist it around until you sound crazy. Also, he probably has jam on his face and dirty hands. Also, I don't want to turn around and look him in the face and scare him with my face, which is a sad face, the face of someone going through a difficult thing and not handling it very well. He isn't messy, not really, just too young to understand that you have to clean as you go because messes compound and you have to confront the things you've ruined before they drown you in wreckage and filth. Unless he's 10, in which case he's old enough to learn. Also, He got shampoo all over the bathroom because he was pretending he didn't know how to wash his hair, hoping someone else would do it for him. But he put on such a good show that he convinced himself that he didn't know how to do it after all. And he scared himself, which is pretty much what I do all the time. So it was irritating and made me feel self-conscious. If he's 6, he probably looks cute with jam on his face. If he's 10, probably not. I don't know what I'd do if he was 16, standing behind me with too long hair and jam on his face, going on about dinosaurs with his dirty hands and not looking up and not realizing that I'm not Andy. When I was in the hospital and my head was full of noise and snow, I still knew who Andy was. Also, there are dogs. I call them Dog, Other Dog, and Little Dog. I won't learn their real names. The only reason you name a dog is so you can tell it what to do. I don't know what to do, so I'm staying out of it. I don't look the dogs in the face either. Once you look something in the face, it starts to want things.
And that was Dinosaur from I Do Know Some Things by Richard Siken. I should say at this point, if you have any questions for Richard, please do leave them in the chat window, especially on YouTube. I'll take a peek at Facebook too. And also, if you haven't clicked the like button yet, please do. There's always about twice as many people watching live as have clicked like at this point in the show. And if you click like, it helps more people find this work of poetry later. So do click the like button if you're enjoying this. There was a question, I think it was Matt Joseph, although it was way up, who wanted to know about your painting. And I wanted to know this. So I was curious how this experience has affected your painting. And you know, because painting is so visual and so symbolic at the same time, too. A lot of the things that go into poetry go into painting. Has this changed the way you paint as well?
It has absolutely changed the way I paint. Painting and poetry are both concerned with the image. Fundamentally, that's where they spring from, and then they get expressed in different ways. I've talked a bit about how my voice has changed and my music has changed. My hand has changed too. My physical body has changed. And so I cannot gesture the same way that I did before. I cannot do detail work, and I do not have a smooth, meticulous line. So I had to come to terms with the fact that I would need to develop a looser style and that I would have to shift into new strategies for expressing. I think what we call style is just us compensating for what we can't do. I think if you can't crosshatch, you come up with a different way of shading to get around the fact that you can't crosshatch. And then people say, oh, his shading is so unique. It's so signature. And it's like, that's all I could do, man. And so I am developing a new style because I have a different skill set. I would say it's more limited, but really it's not. It's just different. And I'm finding entry into the delights of new strategies. But it's tough. And before the stroke, I was living in a 2-bedroom split level condo. And I had Spork Press where I had half of a warehouse to use as my studio that included a dedicated space for me to paint. And now I live in one room in a house full of people and dogs.
Hmm.
I was painting 2 feet by 2 feet uh, wood panels, and I don't have the room for that. I don't even have the room to show my paintings or get many of them on the walls. And I don't dare get my oil paints out because they're toxic. And we have 4 dogs. One of them likes to sleep in my room. There's just no way I can do that until I get a studio. So there are a lot of new challenges and limitations to what I was able to do.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I saw, maybe it was on a Twitter post, that you dabbled with using AI in visual art, but it would have sort of stopped. And I keep thinking about, even though there's so much harrowing emotional content and what's going on in your books too, but I keep thinking about what AI is as well as we talk, because talking about how there's so many rules that you're relearning and refining the music and phrases and in different ways, different structures of writing. And one of the things that we have as we develop as readers is a sort of large language model in our own brains, which is the kind of the thing you are reconstructing and putting back together in a new form too. And so I'm really curious about your thoughts on AI and just how this process of rebuilding yourself relates to that, and why you were using it for a while and why you stopped, and what you think about just what AI means for the future of poetry, because it all seems to tie in a really strange and interesting way.
Well, I was using AI because I had limited capacity and limited access to resources. But it wasn't satisfying because after the initial surprise and delight of it, I couldn't make it do what I wanted it to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel like I was actually doing that much. I felt more like I was cheerleading something to make art, but I wasn't making art myself. I was just on the sidelines cheerleading something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think AI is going to be a tool, and I think everything is a tool. I think you come across calligraphy and you think, can I use this? Is this an expression that's satisfying for me? And then you come across printmaking and you're like, can I use this? And you come across photography. Can I use this? And then you get fiction and poetry. It's like, well, do I want to tell a story or do I want to evoke something? Or then you start working on a poem and you're like, you know what? I think this might be a dance. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with AI. I think smart people can find interesting, satisfying, shocking ways to use any tool. I just don't think that it shows much promise as being a useful tool for creative expression. I think it's useful for other things, but you can't. It doesn't do what you want it to do, and you can enjoy the happy accident of it.
Yeah. Well,
But
talking. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I
talking
will. I
about the different moves, and the ways you could encounter moves in a prose poem, it made me think about the way a chess, computer can think of certain moves that no human has thought of yet. And it's a great move, and it's one of those ones that somebody would have discovered at some point, but it found it early because it had a million, billion, trillion looks at the possible moves and found some ones we hadn't thought of yet. And there's a way that there's that, but then there's a way that that's ultimately so unsatisfying, you know? And you use that word unsatisfying yourself, I think. And there's something about just the drive to make art that's so foreign to it, I think. It feels like different to me than a tool, if you know what I mean. So I guess what I'm curious about what you think about what the drive to art actually is and why it's so unsatisfying to do it that way.
Okay, I want to answer this in a variety of ways. The question about my painting has made me want to drop out one of the poems that I was planning on reading and replace it with a different one.
Yeah,
So
sure.
let me start by pulling that one up.
Okay, and what page is it on? Can you find it?
I don't know because I'm not reading from the book.
Okay, I find it on the table of contents when you
So
say it.
you're just gonna have to fly blind with me on this one. I still had access to the studios at Spork Press after the stroke for a while. COVID actually was the thing that did us in at Spork Press, and we had to shutter after 20 years. But I still had the studio, and I think this might answer some questions about the impulse for art.
Mm-hmm.
If you have questions after, certainly I like to address them too. Marshmallow cats. I spent most of yesterday in the emergency room because I still can't see, and my eyes should have resolved by now. So I went down there and I said, "Hey, I can't really see. It's all cloudy." And they said, "No problem, but if you have blurry vision and a headache, then we should check just a few things maybe." And I said, "Sure, that's awesome, but I have cloudy vision, not blurry vision." And they said, "Okay, champ." And they stole a bunch of my blood and gave me an EKG and an IV and some wires and a beeping machine and a blood pressure cuff. Then the eye doctor said, "Everyone over 40 has filthy eyes, but yours are especially filthy, front and back, both lenses, therefore surgery. But also, you might be having another stroke, so we want to take a picture with the CT machine," which I found upsetting because I didn't want another stroke. I just wanted eye drops or something easy. And I got to thinking about all the possible complications, like how they might accidentally replace my eyes with the eyes of a criminal, which would give me more, although different, headaches. The CT machine was loud. After a while, they said, "Your eyes are crap, but your brain is fine. So go home for now." I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, but it creeped me out. So I ate most of a frozen banana cream pie and started to paint a picture of the ghost of a marshmallow cat, because everyone looks like the ghost of a marshmallow cat when you have filthy eyes. Style is how you compensate for what you can't do. I know, none of this is interesting. Hello, vampires. Vampires are interesting. A cat can be interesting. Once I painted a picture of a tabby cat eating thimbles. It was sort of interesting. Sometimes you don't understand what needs to be there until you've painted it. Anyway, these aren't business hours, and I don't work for you. Drew says I am a monster. Andy says there is a monster inside me. If they are both right, there is a monster inside my monster. Drew says being a monster is punk rock. Andy says you don't have to spend all day with your monster. Sometimes friends should leave each other alone.
Yeah, and that was Marshmallow Cats, one of the latter poems in I Do Know Some Things by Richard Siken. So if you have the book out, you can look at that cover too. And is that your actual handwriting, by the way, Richard?
That's my actual handwriting.
Yeah, I thought so. That's really interesting too. It's really a wonderfully designed book. too. I mean, I love the black with just the handwriting on it is a really great choice.
I figured if the book was going to lack ornamentation, if every poem was going to look the same, if there was going to be no ornamentation with line break, no ornamentation with lying, no talking animals like I did in my second book, then why put ornamentation on the front? I was like, title, author. Don't even pick a font. Just do it in my handwriting. Do it white on black.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep it as minimal as possible and let the content work. It's like pretty much turn down the volume of everything else except for the content.
Yeah. Um, it makes me wonder too. I mean, you mentioned the truthfulness again, and that is what's so striking about the book. What do you think truth is? There's factual truth, and then there's something deeper. And that deeper truth is something that we look for in poems all the time, and we talk about how the details. Even if it was, I think we were talking to Billy Collins on the Poetry Space a couple weeks ago. And he mentioned in his lanyard that it wasn't really the Adirondacks; it was the Catskills that took place, the camp. But Adirondack sounds better and fits better for the poem. And somehow there's more truth to the false detail sometimes than the true detail. Do you know what I mean? And so when we have all these different stories that we tell ourselves and other people tell us, and we're weaving this web of things together to make what we think of as the truth, it's really a quite nebulous thing. And I'm curious what you think about truth, given all that we've talked about so far, both within your poems and in the greater life that you live.
I think this whole book struggles with that, with truth and lie, with myth versus personal history, how we build ourselves and out of what materials, what stories, how we reinvent ourselves. But I think another part of it also truth. The reason why I picked the Marshmallow Cats poem to read and the question about art and what does art do or what does art want? I think the line that really shocked me, I said it so casually, and then I had to write it down and put asterisks all over it, was sometimes you don't understand what needs to be there until you've painted it. And I think we don't talk about that part of the truth, of invention, of art. Like sometimes you just have to, whether you're being serious or you're goofing off, you just have to do it to see what's going to come of it because you don't know what it is you're striving for. I think AI can't do that. AI can have its happy accidents, but it can't really get in the zone and let what needs to happen happen.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a need. There isn't an overwhelming need in AI, whether that's longing or yearning or expressing, whether it's tenderness or fury. I think we're looking for that. I'm not saying we have it all the time. We don't. We have to search for it. We are afraid of it. We deny it and we postpone it and we subvert it. And sometimes you don't know what needs to be there until you make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, really well said, and that's really why we're all here doing this thing. It's a healing, important thing to be making meaning out of the chaos of our lives, and nothing can replace that except for the practice of making art and then sharing it too. So, really well said, Richard. We're about up on time. Do you want to finish off with one last poem? We got two left you sent, so either of the two that are left, I guess.
I got one left. Yeah, this talks about the book in a larger sense. It talks about the craft choice of writing in paragraphs and also alludes to how I was going to measure my recovery on the ability to create a paragraph. I didn't know what to do with it, so I put it in a box. I tried to keep it all together, but it was multiplicitous in theory and practice. It was confusing. I tried to say it completely, a single thought completely. I said it as plain as I could. I got everyone into the same room to see if something would happen. Something happened. The shape of things, their allotted slots. I set the margins and surrounded the thoughts on all sides. I made everything the same shape and concentrated on the space between the thoughts. So much thinking in the space between the thoughts. I built a house out of other houses. I stapled them together. It was makeshift, but it kept the wind out. I sat in each room until I could describe it. I adjusted the furniture. A paragraph is like a small town. You have to have stamina. It takes a lot to achieve escape velocity. I drove all night to get to Santa Fe once, just to get away from everything. I stayed in a Motel 6. It was like a paragraph. Once I described a forest as a box of leaves. You can put words around anything, even an absence. Here is a pear, pomegranate. I think these are apricots. This shoe, that coat. If you can't find the word, you can still describe it. Once I said restaurant nurse instead of waitress. It was good enough. The meaning survived.
Yeah, wonderful poem. Those paragraph from I Do Know Some Things by Richard Siken. Richard, it's been such a pleasure to read this book and get to know you more and talk to you tonight. Thanks so much for sharing your experience with the world and to putting it into really powerful poetry too. Really appreciate all you do and being here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so once again, that was Richard Siken. You can find I Do Know Some Things from Copper Canyon. Also at his website, richard-siken.com. That's richard-siken.com. And we didn't get to talk about one thing I love that Richard does is his website is pretty much just his poems from his 3 books put up with links to them all where you can find and read them. No frills there either, in addition to the same kind of spirit as the cover. So find so much of Richard's work at his website, richard-siken.com, and pick up the new book from Copper Canyon. Now we're going to take a quick break and go to our prompt lines. And the prompt for this week was to, there it is, write a poem that touches on hair. That is your prompt for this week. A really simple, short one. Write a poem that touches on hair. Now remember, if you have a poem to share, how you participate is to email your poem first to promptlines@rattle.com. That's promptlines, all one word, at rattle.com. That way we can show the poems on the screen and everybody watching can read along. And then find the Zoom link, which I'm about to deploy on Facebook and YouTube. And join us on the Zoom, but only if you have a poem to share. Quick reminder, too, it is a 1-page max and a 3-minute max on camera. We want to be able to move through everybody quickly, get enough time for as many people as possible before everyone starts falling asleep. It is late on a 3-day weekend. But please do share poems if you've got them. And we'll be right back with a whole bunch more poetry. And we're back. Thanks so much for your patience. We've got our prompt poems editor, associate editor, my wife, Katie Dozier, here joining us. Hey, Katie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to get into our prompt lines. I'm interested to see what you came up with, too.
All right. Well, so the prompt, once again, was to...
Write a poem that touches on hair.
Write a poem
short enough that I remembered it.
Wow, good
Yay!
job.
That was a big moment for me. No, so I've been thinking a lot about, because on the Poetry Space this week, we got to talk with Billy Collins, as you referenced earlier in this episode. And so I'm really trying to work on that invitation to the reader. I feel like, it's something I really care a lot about, but I want to drill down into caring even more about it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, well, definitely. Let's hear what you got.
Okay. Leftovers. Outside with a pillow and a book, where even the sun couldn't help but look, I spied a strand of my blonde hair swirling off a branch of crepe myrtle. If someone wanted to, they could unpack this whole picnic. They could weave the way that all we do is scatter our hair over the earth day after day. How many nests have knitted in a strand? Inside the basket, a warm sandwich with last night's roast chicken, dill pickles made from spent cucumbers, and a bag of cherries on a mission to stain the hands of all that bite them. Oh, the red of having read, the taste of missing.
Yeah, so I'm really fascinated by the form here, Katie, because it's like one of those sonnet -1.
It is a sonnet -1. I was so obsessed with that like 2 years ago, right?
I know, but the last line is also kind of like a haiku.
Thank you.
So are you thinking about it as like a verse bun?
I was trying to maybe find a way to, thank you for that question, it's playing to my Hyben heart. I really was trying to find a way of making Hyben maybe like sneaking in a sneaky Hyben, like for somebody that's like, oh God, it's another one of these things with the haiku at the end that she puts out there. Try to hide it in there a little subtly and see if it works. So I guess it worked for you, so that's a start.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. Now mine, I was reading the chat window. So over on the chat, people are saying the mics are too quiet for them on Zoom. So sorry about that.
Would you like me to yell?
No, how about now? I think we want this one. Input volume.
That's the first time I've ever been told I was too quiet.
Okay, don't automatically adjust the microphone volume. Wait. Sorry, well, this is great TV. Yeah, so the thing is, how about we're turning this on? Okay, sorry, everybody. Yeah, so I switched, we mentioned I drove all the stuff we had left in California back to Texas. And the computer we had in California is actually much faster than the computer I had in Texas. So I swapped everything over, and some of the settings are just not right yet. Hopefully, is that better? Someone give me a thumbs up if that sounds better. Like Kimberly, I see
or a thumbs down if it's awful. Like 2 thumbs way down.
Okay, so anyway, that's that. So, but thanks for sharing that poem, Katie. And really, I love the format. It was really cool.
Thanks.
Okay, and then this is mine. I went with a sonnet, and this is called "Hair of the Dog." You familiar with that expression?
Yes, that's funny.
Okay, with his hair of the dog. On every hair the scent of dog, the dust, the dander, slobber caked in streaks, his last meal and his first, a rat he caught in the yard, its skull stripped bare, its own dried blood, or rust across the ivory of its large and ghastly teeth. Or how so full of self-regard he'd lope from out the flannel bush, a deer's forelimb flopping softly like a trophy stick locked in his jaws. And everywhere his hair. A mountain under every couch and chair, so much beneath the deck, the mess so thick I had to use a rake. It's been 3 years, in quilts and socks his hairs appear the same. Gross. But when I called, he always came.
Aww.
There's a poem for my old dog.
What a nice
And,
poll there. That's really sweet.
Oh, well, thanks so much. Of course, hair of the dog is, being hungover. Drinking more will help.
Hair of the dog that bit you.
Exactly. Yeah. Not so much. But anyway,
I really don't understand how that one started.
Because it's that whole like what's it called, the old homeopathy. It's like cures like. So if you get bit by a rabid dog, you can put the hair of the dog on the wound. It'll make you not rabid, but it doesn't actually work. So don't try.
Wow, learning a lot today.
Yeah.
Well, the meter is really nice on that too.
Oh, thank you. All right, so that is my hair of the dog. Let's see what everybody else has for us tonight, and let's go first to Dick Westheimer.
Hello, all.
Hey, Dick.
Couple of things. One is I checked over on YouTube. The sound is much better there, but it just on the Zoom, it sounds like you're in a
Hmm.
can. Um,
Oh, you know what? Okay, thanks for
We
that.
are in a can. That's the problem.
I feel
oh,
bad for okay,
who
so
knew?
probably
And is that a metaphor, Katie?
I'm trying to work one out. I was just picturing literally being inside of like a can of Diet Coke or something, but I don't think that that's accurate actually.
yeah.
Can't hear you now.
How's it sound now? No?
Oh, clear, soft, but
Yeah.
clearer.
Okay. Well, I think we figured out the problem. Okay, thank
Well,
you.
by we you
Okay.
mean you. I had nothing to do with that.
Okay. Yeah, it was set up to the wrong mic. Yeah.
Okay.
I checked through
Uh,
all the settings, but there's so many freaking
It's a
settings. I
lot of
forgot to some to
settings.
check.
Yeah.
Anyway.
and Tim, at the risk of sounding solicitous, that was a fabulous interview. It's like Richard came alive under your sort of like a not seeking gaze, and it was really a gift.
Oh well, thanks for saying that. I found. I mean, the book was really incredible.
I love the term seeking gaze. That's really fascinating right
Yeah, I
there. I feel
didn't,
like we already
gaze
got your
is
poem, Dick. That was
it
it.
goes as a fraught word, but yeah, there we go. Yeah, there's a little gazing in my poem going on too. So
Okay.
okay, um, so beach reverie after 46 years. It's simple, really. Me alone at dawn, walking the beach. It's low tide near Cape May, the wet sand firm beneath my feet. I see a couple, young, it seems in heat, coming towards me. Behind them walks a man my age, perhaps 73, his gnarled hand slipped in the smaller hand of a woman, her shoulders slightly hunched, her hair gray. And I think we are so much the same. The couple in heat, me, the old man and his mate, and you when I slipped from bed this morning, my fingers lightly tangling in your gray and nebular mane. And I had to rein my urge to gentle you awake, my age-splotched hand on his lover's thigh. I wanted to run, tell the young couple never to dye their hair, to not deny the splotch and gnarl, the gray, the restless waves, the fading away.
Well, beautiful rhymes. A lot more rhyme than I'm used to in your poems, Dick. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Hall.
Thanks, Dick.
Yeah,
See
thanks
ya.
so much for sharing that. Yeah, it was Dick Westheimer with Beach Reverie after 46 years. Let's go next to Rick Pongratz.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Rick, great to see you.
Good to see you all too. Thank you for a wonderful interview. I really, really enjoyed that. Um, so I'm excited to share mine. My mom was a beautician, so this was I was really happy for this prompt. So thank you.
Hmm.
All right. Ode to What's Lost from a Bald Sun. It's a trigger, makes me think of something bigger. It's a breath, but too soon to talk of death. More than just braids, it's blown, teased, gelled, and sprayed. It's angelic noodles, epically famous on poodles. More than just locks of the dog, it's on the rocks. The afro maybe got gigantic, fingers through it so romantic. Split, it's pedantic, but let's not get semantic. Extend it, dye it, olive oil it. Fuck it, you gotta commit. Sculpt it, shave it, wax it, show off your best asset. Now it's thinning. We're in the later innings. Going, going, gone, lost to me. It's all about family. It's a pin, and with that pin comes a turn. So as a dresser, it's my mom. I'm in her chair. She has scissors in her right hand. The shaking fingers of her left prop it up to be snipped and fall with her touch to memory.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I love again the rhymes and then breaking out of the rhyme at the end. Really
Mm-hmm.
neat use of the turn musically. Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that, Rick.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good
it
night.
was. Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
night. There was a Rick Pongratz with "Ode to What's Lost," and next up, let's go to Amanda Harris.
All right. So I've had a lot of fun with this one, and I just want to say that Richard Siken is one of my poetic heroes, so I'm so
Mm.
glad you guys got the chance to interview him.
Mm.
All right. That being said, botched Hyben. In the dream that begins the dream, you point to a fading spot that hair once populated. This is the result of colonialism, I joke, but you, because of either Christianity or a refusal to attend college, don't laugh. Such silence could make a town barren. Such silence could undo marriages, throw rings into disposals, and then, in the same breath, knock the diamond from the ring towards a foreign continent. In the dream that begins the dream, you say that men are no longer men once they have lost their hair. Combs are my kingdom, goes the unspoken credo. Follicles conspire, scalp mites gnaw on melanocytes, gestating stomach.
Yeah, Amanda, and you wrote this really quickly after, right? You posted this on your Substack, and I got the notification because I subscribed to you, and I was like, no way did Amanda already write a prompt poem. I told Tim, you won't believe this. So how soon after last week's episode did you write this?
I literally wrote this like right after Rattlecast was over. I just kind of sat down and wrote like, okay, time to knock that out of the way.
Well,
And
that's
it
great.
was just like it came to me like an epiphany.
Mm-hmm. And what's your Substack handle for people who want to see a prompt poem immediately
Right.
after?
I'm just gonna
No pressure, though.
no pressure. Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly okay. aronekeats.substack.com.
All right.
Very
Well,
cool.
cool.
Yeah. Well, cool, Hyman. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So it was Amanda Harris with Botched Hyben.
And for the record, I was proud of my comment on Amanda's post because I said, well, that was hair-raisingly fast. So.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, there's Amanda Harris with Botched Hyben. Let's go next to Jared Campbell.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, Jared. Great to see you.
Yep, good to see you. So some of this will be familiar for people who listened to the poetry space. The presumption of interest. I'm eating a bowl of pears with Stilton and listening to Billy Collins talk about how to write parodies of suburbia. The fudginess of Stilton goes so well with pears. The pears from the tree in my front yard are so abundant this year and so sweet. Collins warns me against the presumption that anyone is interested in my inner life, which reminds me, ever since COVID-19, I've been cutting my own hair. It goes without saying that my hair is meant to be cut off, swept up, and thrown away. I would never presume that anyone wants to keep my hair just because it grew out of my head. Which is more presumptuous, I wonder? To clean house for a guest, or to let them see how you really live? Which is more hospitable? One of the parodies of suburbia is that on the surface, everyone lives in the same way, in the same Tudor house, surrounded by the same green lawn. And the hospitality of the suburbs is a sharing of the samenesses. But none of my neighbors have pear trees in their yards. So if a neighbor came to visit and I offered them pears, would that be hospitable or inhospitable? If you ever came to visit, I'd offer you a bowl of pears, I think, chewing another bite of pear. I don't talk about my pears because I think you're interested in them. I don't presume to know what you think is interesting. I talk about my pears because they're sweet, and because they grew in my own yard. These truths make the pears as undeniable as the hardness of the bowl in front of me.
Well, really interesting counter argument, I'd say.
Yeah,
in
that
poem.
is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To what we were talking about with a presumption of interest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And people are going to show up listening to that episode expecting a discussion of fruit. They will be disappointed.
Yeah. We all picked apples.
We all went apples.
Yeah.
And something that Billy Collins and I actually have in common is we both talk about pears a lot. So,
That's a good one to pick for sure.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Jared.
all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was Jared Campbell with Presumption of Interest.
I also cut my own hair. I feel the need to share so I can relate to Jared Campbell.
Nice, yeah. Well, so do I.
I know. I was wondering if you're going to tell everybody
Yeah.
you do. But you
I do, yeah. And it's about dude getting a little bushy.
That's an unintentional hint, I guess. I didn't need to give. Okay.
No. It's all good. No, I do, like once a week, you know?
It's impressive. Even
Well,
the back
thank
of his
you.
hair, he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I cut mine, but mine's like it's nothing. I'm not gonna pay somebody to do that for me, even though it would look better. But anyway,
It wouldn't look
okay.
better. It looks
well,
amazing.
thank you.
Okay. Let's go next to Kimberly Gibson Tran.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hey, Kimberly, great to see you.
Hi. So I'm proud of myself. I brought a prose poem.
Oh, nice.
Very on.
Looking ahead to the next week's homework.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't even know. I didn't look at it.
Spoiler. No, I really like the prose poem style, and it really works for me on certain subjects. But I don't want to take too long. Let me get into this one.
Okay.
I guess small disclaimer. This is not in any way some endorsement of Dean Cain as a human being and his behavior recently. So, Lois and Clark. I will never not watch Terry Hatcher and Dean Cain go at each other in my favorite Superman soap opera. Lois, that crisp-collared, shoulder-padded 90s TV warrior. Clark, that bespectacled, vaguely Asian, extraterrestrial beefcake, extra in love with her. I like to see a man pine, suffer under bright eyes and a brunette bob. This you get in Lois and Clark. The show marked me early. Someone's mom had VHS tapes from a friend in the US. Sammy and I must have watched them, or at least an episode, because at 7 years old, we were reenacting scenes. Mom stitched me a yellow diamond S on a blue t-shirt, crimson cape at the shoulder seams. And Sammy made do as Lois with a pinstripe towel around the waist, a flippant attitude as he threw himself into dangerous scenarios for Super Me to swoop into. Decades later, commenting on my engagement photos, Sammy's mom, always her shiny helmet of a Terry Hatcher bob, mused that I should have married her half-Asian son. Funny, her note brought back a memory. Me and Sam reconnecting in high school, chatting over AIM, sharing our struggles to wear the skins of our Americanness. He in Chicago, me in College Station, Texas. We traced my penis envy to when our moms bathed us together in one tub. We made a pact to marry each other at 40 if we needed to. Now and then I peruse his daring designs from fashion school, wonder if his mind ever cut to that scene of Superman modeling his mom's home-sewn muscle suits, getting to choose.
Yeah, really like the ending there, dropping down a gear is really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Kimberly.
Thank you. And it only just touches on hair.
Well, it touched. Yep.
That's all it's got to do.
Yep.
Way to take it literally. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, that was Kimberly Gibson Tran with Lois and Clark. Next up, let's go to Jeff Stumpo.
Reigning prompt poet of the month.
Thank you for
And he
reminding
better
me.
soak it up because the time is expiring.
It's not for long.
Yeah.
My poem is really short, so first I'm going to briefly tell you about the poem that I did not write for this week.
Okay.
No, when you dropped the prompt, I immediately started working on a poem for my friend Crystal, who is a black woman, and so has had that near universal experience of white people coming up and touching her hair without asking permission. And it's not that I can't write that poem. She knows that I have it in me to write that poem and do it well. But in this week, I was not able to write that poem and do it well. So this morning, my wife left for a business trip at like 4:35 something. And I ended up writing a braided haiku for her this afternoon. So this is what I ended up with. It's much happier than the crystal poem would have been. Checking her watch, streaming through the door, hair still wet. My wife, the traveler, up with the sun, touches down in New Orleans. My wife, the traveler, checking her watch, up with the sun streaming through the door, touches down in New Orleans, hair still wet.
Well, that's really interesting. I have to reread
There's
that.
nothing better than getting a poem from your husband when you're away from him, I have to say. So I hope you took advantage of
She did like it. Yeah, she's like, okay, it's 90 degrees. My hair is actually wet because of the humidity down here. Thank you
Poetic
for
license.
sending that from home.
Thanks, Jeff.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks so much for
Thank
sharing
y'all.
that, Jeff. Really intricate, the way that moves. Cool. Yeah, it's Jeff Stumpo with the braided haiku. Checking her watch, we'll call it. Let's go next to Nancy Sabanek.
Hey there.
Hey, Nancy, great to see you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us. Hair Travail's Diary. I had too much. Legions of demon corkscrews dunked into my cereal bowl, clung in tangles to the comb that tried to part them. Morning's ritual pulled eyebrows to half moons, plucked errant strands that dared to stray from rows. Hair coiled around a thumb, made for better sucking. When yelling erupted, evening's ritual meant ducking from the paternal hand that flung a key ring, anything. My mother's dresser held a styrofoam stand, the bland, faceless head capped by a small wiglet. Alopecia areata, a name that evokes a flower, a ballet, is hair loss accelerated in times of stress. When she grew styrofoam ears, her hair grew back, and the mouthless stand disappeared. I learned a hot iron gentles clouds, and it is absence that is mourned, not excess. How we are groomed to want more, because any is always better than none.
Yeah, really interesting poem. Thanks for sharing
Yeah,
that. A lot
thank you.
of metaphors going on in there. Thanks for sharing it, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is Nancy Sabanek with Hair Travail's Diary. All right, next let's go to Brian O'Sullivan. Hey, Brian, are you there? Oh, I think the mic's not working. But it's not muted, it's the mic being off or something. Okay, well, we'll swing back. Let's go instead to Clayton Clark next.
Hi there.
Hi, Clayton.
Hey,
Well, I
Clayton.
hope we get Brian back.
Oh, I'm sure we will. He's
Sure we
working. I
will.
saw the cat.
I think it's all part of some stick, It's going to be worked into his poem, I
yeah.
suspect.
Well, I
It's
saw the
working.
cat come to the rescue. The cat just jumped across
or the cat was
screen.
the villain.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's like a shakedown scheme.
Yeah, something
Break
is
it so we can
going
fix it.
on.
Yeah, all right.
How are
Anyway.
you, Clayton?
Hi. Well, great show tonight. Amazing. And so this poem I have is about the time where I was taking care of my mom and finally had a day to go to get my hair done. So, sleight of hand. She asks the magician, as he calls himself, for some highlights, copper-like, then sits with rolls of foil in her hair for an ER's length of time. He walks off scrolling, face deep in his phone, giving her room for images of her sick mother being turned in bed by an aide to flicker on her brain screen. A minor chord of melancholia strings a laundry line across her mind. The magician returns, lathers, then lowers her head into the sink beneath a stream of warm water. She detects a jitteriness in him before he helps her rise, then catches the manic spark in his eyes. He does not say abracadabra, just shouts, "Change is good."
Nice. Good. Fun ending there. Thanks.
Yeah, that is
Awful
fun.
hair
That's why I
color.
cut my own hair. That is why.
Yeah, you should keep doing your own hair.
Well, thanks so
Thank
much for
you.
sharing that,
Thanks,
Clayton.
Clayton. Good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, it was Clayton Clark with Sleight of Hand. Let's see. Let's go next to Matt Joseph.
Hi guys.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Matt. Great to see you.
Hey there. Great to see you as well. Great interview as well. I really thought that was awesome. So, all right, I'll jump right in. A few thoughts on my hair. I've noticed it receding lately, like a high cry at 2 a.m. that rushes out of, then crawls back into a guilty night, leaving us to wonder not if something bad has happened, but just how bad. And here's hoping that a call was made by someone somewhere. It's also thinning, like the Northern California forests, each passing fire season scything through the dry wood like a demonically possessed John Deere. Only a bucket of holy water and the world's greatest exorcist could stop. Then there's the gray. I'm plumb out of metaphor, so I'll just say, it's spreading in a way that assures me my children have grown older and reassures me I'm going to die someday, and nothing much I do matters all that much, so all that matters is what I do. And if I'm the luckiest schmuck in the world, many yonks from now, a great, 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 great grandchild of mine, looking at a nebula from the portal of their holodeck, or half naked in furs, shadows dancing on the wall of their cave, whichever one comes next, will hold in their hand the hand of another, give it a tight squeeze, and know they will be squeezed back every bit as hard.
Very sweet ending there, and the journey around to it. Thanks so much for sharing that, Matt.
Yeah, thanks you guys. Love this stuff.
Matt. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. It was Matt Joseph with a few thoughts on my hair.
I love Matt's energy. He's always so I feel uplifted every single
Yeah.
time, regardless of what the poem is like, if it's a serious poem or a lighter poem. He's just an uplifting person.
Definitely. Just,
Yeah.
the positivity. You really do. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. All right. Let's see. Well, Brian O'Sullivan turned his camera off, then back on. So I think that means he's probably ready. Let's see. Hey, Brian, are you there this time?
Can you hear me?
Yay!
I can. Yay!
Hi!
Yeah.
All right.
I
Well,
don't
great to
know
see
why
you, Brian.
the microphone's working. Hey, good. It's great to see you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So I don't know if I accidentally declined the invitation to invite, but I went like a sort of Norse mythology way. I thought about this weird story of Loki cutting off the hair of the goddess Sif. It's a really funny story, and I tried to write a funny poem about it, and that didn't work because it was too funny to make a funny poem about. So I did a more kind of lyric one. You can't really write a parody of something ridiculous. Okay. Gold for Sif, after Annie Finch's Brigid. Flow, 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 wheaten hair, till Loki with his shears of mischief boldly cuts sheaves and sheaves until the field is bare. Now flow, 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 hair of gold, hammered by deft dwarves in the deep below, blessed by sanguine Sif with summer's glow, salvaged at last from fiery Loki's plan. Can a foal be fortunate once again? That is it.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks so much, Brian. Again, great music. There's so much rhyme going on today.
Yeah, sorry, we were distracted because Charlotte was apparently reacting, I guess, to the end of your poem with joy. And
Yeah, she said, yeah!
Okay, yeah.
I'm so sneaky gifted today.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you. Sorry for the mix-up.
Yeah. There was Brian O'Sullivan with Gold for Sif. Yeah, interesting story, too. Next, let's go to Chelsea McClellan.
Hello, good to see you.
Hey, Chelsea, good to
Hi.
see you.
My poem this week is just called Empathy. Empathy. We all agree which pain is worse between a fistful pulling hair and one strand yanked out from its source. Sometimes a lover's breath is scarce, Balloons will sometimes pop midair. We all agree which pain is worse, between a scare and death, of course. A shirt torn off by a hungry bear, or one strand yanked out from its source. I'd rather leave you by the hearse than by the spirit of despair. We all agree which pain is worse, a son too young to know remorse, roughly brushing his mother's hair, or one strand yanked out from its source. A mother's emptied, grieved mid-course, who'd wish her baby back from God. We all agree which pain is worse, one strand that's yanked out from its source.
Wow, a powerful poem and a great use of the villanelle.
Yeah,
I think those,
it really is.
the two refrains, like both working at that level of twisting meaning and
they
stuff.
Mean so much more at the end than they do at the beginning.
Yeah, really great use of the form, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks so much for sharing it. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was Chelsea McClellan with Empathy. Next, let's go to Laura Berg.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Laura, great to see you.
I'm joining the group about hair and age, or somehow time. Hair and time. Okay. It's still a work in progress, but here we go.
Okay.
Listening in. In the room across our Jack and Jill bath, boar bristles in a wooden-handled brush careened like a boy in a barrel down the falls of my sister's hair. I heard that hair say, "Here's a curl of me to keep in your locket." So I did and wore it. And I heard that curl say, "She's going out this afternoon, so you can look in her closet and try on those high-heeled shoes. Maybe even peek at her nude picture in the shoebox if you're quick." Her hair swung like a bow on a cello. It spread like a peacock's tail across the tub. Mine was short. On a motorcycle behind a college man, that hair in a chopstick bun ebbed into the distance. The curl in the locket said, "She grew up." "I want her back," I told it, and kept watch. Her dues matched the suits she wore to the office. Children brushed that hair. It rode in Appaloosa with her into the Rockies, globe-trotted, turned silver, said, "I'm older." "I'm older too," I said. And still, you hold the mystery in my world.
Yeah.
Really sweet. I love the concept of the hair talking to you that we keep, in these ways too. Like I have a little jar with my daughter's first haircuts, in there. And like, what do I do with that? Well, I can imagine it talking to me too one day.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing that, Laura.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's Laura Berg with Listening In. Next, let's go to Mark Grenier.
Hello.
Hey, Mark, great to see you.
This is from another generation, I think. It's a sonnet. It's called Hair, oddly enough. Oh, for the muse of a clean shampoo, for long, beautiful hair and an old rock song. For we've grown bald past middle age, suffered the loss, the terrible loss of windy locks grown lank with rain on a summer day, or fall, or winter, or even spring. The splendid shine of pristine strands escaping the rule of a cultured coif as the years blow by, bringing ashes to us from a nearby blaze, the presence of fear, the chance of pain. If the fire strands escape again as they have in the past, to fill this breath with a strangling strain, the tongue-tied wrap of a tangled skein.
Yeah, great last couplet.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Mark.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's Mark Grenier with Hair. Next, let's go to Nancy Tennell.
The poem that I put on the Facebook prompt page, I wish I could uncut my hair, was based on a true story.
Oh.
I did try to cut my own bangs once. Oh my goodness. And then with Nancy's poem that mentioned a hot iron, I thought, oh, in the 60s, I ironed my long hair so
Oh,
that it would
wow.
be perfectly straight.
Wow.
Wow.
Or rather, my parents had to iron it for me as I knelt before the ironing board.
Oh, wow.
But this is yet another hair poem called Immortelle. Immortelle, an object made from hair, collected from a loved one who now is gone. Sometimes it is a decorative edging in a frame that holds a favorite photograph of them. It could be a bracelet made from a braid or a locket that contains a ringlet from their curls. Wear it on a black velvet ribbon around your neck to bring the comfort of their continued presence. Secret whispers, a silent seance, wearing a prayer, a perpetual requiem, made immortal in an immortelle, an object made from hair, still organic, still quite real. This seems a much softer memorial to me than a cold metal charm engraved with a name.
Yeah, really interesting poem there. Thanks so much for sharing that,
And
Nancy.
then now I learned a new word. Obviously, I didn't know that when I was just talking to Laura. I could have used that word, immortelle.
Immortelle.
Immortelle is sort of a southern United States near New Orleans. I always thought it was called mourning, mourning, mourning jewelry.
Wow.
Yeah, really interesting.
But-
Yeah, that is. Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing that,
Thanks.
Nancy.
I'm going to look
All right.
on the Facebook group for your other poem, too.
Yeah.
Cutting
Yeah.
your own hair.
Well, I wish I could uncut my hair was fun to write.
All right, well, thanks so much for sharing that,
Autobiographical.
Nancy. Yeah.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
That was Nancy Tunnell with Immortelle. Let's go to Christiana Doucette.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Christiana, great to see you.
Good to see you too. I just had this up, but it looks like it went back down. Okay, I found the poem.
Okay.
The title of it is My Mother's First Haircut After Bed Rest for Hyperemesis Gravidarum. It's a long title, but I kind of wanted to set it up beforehand. My mom had 3 really difficult pregnancies. She had to be hospitalized in all of them. And bed rest was just really hard on her hair. And so this is just a really vivid memory that I have from her last pregnancy. The tangled chestnut blades land lump by lump on the slate near the steps where I lean on a cedar beam staring at the too soon fall around my mother. The weight between each snip slips sideways through the cold sunbeams and bounces off the gray-green rock to ache my eyes. She is catching the stiff sun, carrying it in her arms, on her pale face. She holds its translucent glow on her lap, between her long fingers on the black cloth. And I want to rock it, swaddle the almost warmth in my too small baby blanket until it warms, until it dozes. But each long felted lock tips through the air, through the antiseptic scent of iodine, through the months of time each week leaves behind. She is thin maple sapling, wrapping the dark cloth around her frail limbs. She is shedding whirligig wishes that spin the world dizzy. The stylist's scissors flash silver frost, release the red gold spinners to the silent gale. There are frozen rivers in her eyes, melted icicles in mine as I hug the stairs. She is nestless hollow after last night's storm, and my hands are empty, my arms full of nothing to be done but watch each spinning Jenny fall.
Yeah, I love that last line. What was the name of the poem again, Christiana? Because we didn't have the...
Oh, did it not come through?
No, but we had to listen. But it was beautiful to listen to.
I'm so sorry.
Not a
It's
problem.
my mother's first haircut after bed rest for hyperemesis gravidarum. Hyperemesis gravidarum is extreme morning sickness. It's like having the stomach flu for 9 months.
I went through it. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm familiar. Not
I
on
had
a
it.
hospital level, but yeah.
I had it in a mild version. I didn't have to be hospitalized, just had to get uh, bags of IV fluid a couple times. But my mother had to be hospitalized every time. And
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, beautiful poem to that. Thanks so much for sharing that, Christiana.
Thank you.
Yeah. And a great poem from Christiane Doucette. Let's go next to Zachary Honeycutt.
Hey there. I hope this evening is finding you well, Timothy and Catherine.
That's very cool. I need to start drinking out of a mug at an appropriate time, too. I got to learn tricks from you.
Definitely.
It's very well timed.
It was.
I feel like we're on the Late Late Show or something now.
That's what I was thinking.
Very casual.
Anyway, so so I didn't write about my own hair. I decided to write about another poet's hair who I have to say has a great head of hair. And she's actually one of my poetess crushes. So yeah. Let's see how it goes. I think it went well. I think it's going well. Jealous of the wind. I hear the beat of you, my poetess crush, though I know I'm probably not the only one. How shall I describe the soul housed by your guise? You've got summer in your heart, but autumn in your eyes. Your eyes are bright and green, but somehow dark when they move a certain way, like the sun behind the clouds on a cool autumn day. Your eyes are sympathetic, but then they conceal a mystery, or the shadow of its outward edge, a glimpse into your window that's there then gone away, the flicker of a light on a candle's last day. You haunt me, but in the best way, and your words carry the phantasm of your presence when I'm reading you, and even when you're on a boat, goofing around like a big kid. In vain, I'd try to act like I didn't notice or even care that the wind was already playing with your red hair. Forgive me if it's wrong of me or unfair, but I guess I'm just jealous of the wind.
Well, jealous of the wind. Thanks so much for sharing that, Zach.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
See you guys next week.
Zachary Honeycutt with Jealous of the Wind. And next, let's go to who's left? Oh, Tina Denniclaw is here. Hey, Tina.
Hi.
Hi. How are you guys doing?
Great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I showed up yesterday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
I wondered if anybody would.
I also kind of forced my poem for the last of August in with the August poem. So now I have to go back and take it out. I'm thinking to myself, boy, Katie made a mistake. She didn't include, like, no.
Well, it would have been. That made all the difference that one day.
So, yeah. Okay. So I was so glad to see Brian's poem because I was kind of reluctant about my poem. It just seems kind of, I don't know, kind of tangential to anything. And so now it actually is the continuation of Brian's poem. So thank you very much, Brian. So here we go. Oh, I have to. Okay, international relations. Maybe it was my Irish great-grandfather who gave me reddish gold hair. My mother's brother had hair like mine. Or maybe it was my Danish great-grandmother. My father's mother never said, however, that my hair was like her mother's. Traveling on a smooth black top through the wide open Nevada desert with my Navajo husband and his parents, I could feel sunlight warming the back of my head from rear and side windows, no doubt making my hair glisten. My mother-in-law reached forward from her back seat, gently raised a clutch of my locks twice with the back of her hand and spoke Navajo softly to my husband's father. Irish or Dane. Either way, that day, a Navajo touched a Viking.
Well, thanks for sharing
So that
that.
was
Sweet poem. Yeah.
yeah. I'm the only white person in the whole family, and yeah, that's just the one memory I have of them really touching my heritage.
Yeah.
So thank
Well,
you.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, it was Tina Denniclaw with International Relations. And I think that's going to wrap up the Zoom. Let's double check. Yeah. Let's read before we go Ted Guevara's poem. He says, in my family, frustration, temper, and anger always refer to blood. Never to the point of bleeding, of course. But if you marry the same, the spirit only doubles. Okay, Spanish Blood by Ted Bernal Guevara. Here we go. Spanish Blood. She was so enraged that she pulled on my 70s hair, actually going back to that carefree daisy decade when it was shoulder length and flowing. She pulled so tight my roots yelped from their teardrop holes. She yanked so strong my teen upbringing saw daylight again. Strands lifted yellow etiquettes. I was blonde? She tugged so brutally, my naturalization came out. Days when I was both a comic and a wallflower. Moments when I played pool like a pro, with a table hiding my unzipped fly. She rested so hard, the earth enveloped into night. I didn't know where the day went. Wherever it is, I hope gravity is still vulnerable to our human deficiencies. Wherever it is, I hope there is time out, where people breathe, slow down their heartbeats, with their head clear and their palms free of hair clumps. So there he goes. That's Spanish Blood, Ted Bernal Guevara. Thanks so much for sharing that, Ted, as always. And that's going to wrap up the prompt lines for tonight. Let's go to the haiku. And got a weird phone call. My father, who I hadn't talked to in 25 years, mentioned on the show sometimes. He was in the hospital in like intensive care on a machine. He'd had some surgery, failed, so he might be dying. So made that phone call, which was interesting. And this is the haiku for that, right here. Message left after the beep of the ventilator. There you go. It's message after the beep of the ventilator. That's this week's haiku. And that's going to wrap up the whole show for tonight. Now, what is next week's prompt, Katie Dozier?
I think I can remember it, but it's another short one. But
here we go.
Write a poem that features electricity.
Very interesting.
So Amanda Harris has already written hers.
Did you check the Substack?
No, I'm going to check the sub. Sorry, I don't mean to put the pressure on you, Amanda. Take the week.
Yeah, well, write a poem that features electricity. Another quick hitter.
Quick, but you got to take it to its max. Get
Definitely.
the max charge.
Get the max charge.
This prompt.
We got a lot of puns potentially during
I
next
know.
week's.
I'm excited for the puns. I was going to add something else, and I was like, electricity's enough. Really take it full throttle, I think. Is that a pun? I don't know. No, that's cars.
Maybe like gas.
Maybe.
Well, with a Tesla. Anyway. All right. So write a poem that features electricity. Next week's prompt. The next week's guest is going to be Matthew Thorburn. So really wonderful poet. He's been around a couple times, Matthew Thorburn. His new book, String, which came out a couple years ago, is a long poem in verse. Or novel in poem? Novel in verse, that's the phrase. Novel in verse by Matthew Thorburn. He's also got a poem in this summer's issue. Really looking forward to getting to know him better. That's Rattlecast number 308. The prompt, once again, write a poem that features electricity. Now it's going to be the regular time, which is now Mondays, September 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great week. In the meantime, we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.
Good night.